Hi, and welcome back to Law, Justice, and Social Change. I'm Ellie Ballard. Today, let's take a look at accountability in justice systems. More specifically, we'll explore how systems maintain integrity, respond to misconduct, and balance public trust with legal responsibility. What does it mean when we say accountability in justice systems? Well, accountability means ensuring justice system actors act lawfully, ethically, and transparently. It means that we can hold them responsible for their actions. Now, some of the actors in our justice system include law enforcement officials, prosecutors and defense attorneys, judges and other court officials, correctional staff, policymakers, and oversight bodies. Accountability can take on various forms, each serving a distinct function in maintaining checks and balances within society. Legal accountability refers to the responsibility of individuals and organizations to adhere to laws and regulations that are set by governing bodies. This form of accountability ensures that actions are within the boundaries of the legal framework and helps maintain social order by preventing unlawful behavior. Now, political accountability, on the other hand, emphasizes the oversight and scrutiny of actions by elected leaders and public officials. In democratic systems, this type of accountability is vital as it allows voters to hold their representatives responsible for their decisions and policies. This ensures that public resources are used responsibly and that leaders' actions align with the will of the people. Political accountability is often facilitated through mechanisms like elections, legislative reviews, and even parliamentary inquiries. Ethical or professional accountability focuses on adherence to internal standards set by professional bodies or organizations. These standards guide individuals and institutions to behave in ways that are morally sound, fostering trust and integrity within various fields like medicine, law, or even business. This form of accountability is self-regulated, with professionals often held to a code of conduct that dictates responsible behavior, ethical decision-making, and the commitment to public welfare. Finally, we have public accountability, and this is rooted in the power of society to influence change through activism, through media scrutiny, public discourse. This form is driven by the collective voices of citizens. We can hold individuals, organizations, or governments accountable through protest, campaigns, or even investigative journalism. It highlights the role of an informed public in promoting transparency, challenging injustices, and ensuring that those in power are answerable to the people that they serve. Together, these forms of accountability create a system of checks and balances that ensures transparency, fairness, and justice in both public and private sectors. Mechanisms for accountability are essential in identifying and addressing misconduct across justice systems. Internal investigations are one such mechanism, typically conducted within an organization to examine allegations of wrongdoing. These investigations are led by the organization itself, often through a designated internal unit or department. They're designed to uncover potential violations of policies, procedures, or ethical standards. Now, while internal investigations can offer valuable insight, their effectiveness often depends on the organization's commitment to transparency and the impartiality of the investigation process. Another important tool is the creation of civilian boards. Now, these are important bodies that are made up of non-governmental individuals, and they're tasked with overseeing the actions of law enforcement or other public institutions. These boards serve as an external check on power, providing oversight, and they can review complaints of misconduct as well. So civilian boards often include members from diverse backgrounds, and this ensures a broader representation of the public in facilitating accountability that goes beyond internal interest or biases. By offering an independent perspective, these boards can promote trust between the public institutions and the communities that they serve. Special prosecutors can be appointed to investigate and prosecute cases where there are conflicts of interest, particularly a situation where government officials or law enforcement are involved. These independent prosecutors are vital for ensuring that investigations into serious misconduct such as corruption or abuse of power are conducted impartially. Their role is to prevent the appearance of favoritism and to uphold the integrity of the legal process. This really ensures that no one is above the law. Lastly, we have transparency measures. These are essential for fostering public trust and accountabilities. These can include the public release of documents, data, or findings related to investigations, as well as regular reporting on outcomes and actions taken. Transparency allows the public, media, and watchdog organizations to scrutinize the process and hold institutions accountable for their decisions. By ensuring openness, these measures help create a culture of accountability where misconduct is less likely to be concealed or ignored. Now, together, these tools, including internal investigations, civilian boards, special prosecutors, transparency measures, they're all designed to uncover and correct misconduct, to foster accountability and protect the public from harm. When they're effectively implemented, they help to ensure that those who hold power are held to the highest standards of conduct, safeguard our justice and our integrity in society. Despite the numerous mechanisms in place to promote accountability, several significant barriers often hinder its effectiveness. These barriers can protect the institutions in power rather than individuals or communities that they're meant to serve. One major challenge is institutional resistance to oversight. Many organizations, especially those with significant power or authority, may actively resist external scrutiny. This resistance can take various forms, such as lobbying against oversight measures, creating internal barriers to transparency, or downplaying the significance of oversight bodies. Institutions may fear that external oversight will expose weaknesses, lead to public criticism, or even undermine their authority so that they may actively work to limit or circumvent accountability processes. Another substantial barrier is qualified immunity and legal protections. In certain legal systems, particularly in the United States, individuals, especially public officials like police officers, may be granted immunity from lawsuits for actions taken in the course of their duties. This legal protection can make it extremely difficult for victims of misconduct to seek redress, as those responsible for the wrongdoing may actually be shielded from personal liability. This can, of course, foster a culture of impunity where individuals feel they can act without fear of consequence. It undermines accountability. Inconsistent data collection and transparency can also play a major role in limiting accountability. In many cases, organizations or governments actually fail to consistently collect or report data related to their actions, decisions, and their outcomes. This lack of reliable data makes it difficult to assess performance or identify areas where misconduct might be occurring. Without transparent data and clear reporting of it, it becomes nearly impossible for the public, the media, or any oversight body to hold entities accountable or to understand where improvements need to be made. A further challenge is the lack of independent investigatory power. In many situations, investigations into misconduct are conducted by the very institutions that are implicated. This creates potential conflicts of interest. Without independent bodies or mechanisms that have the authority and resources to conduct thorough investigations, it becomes really difficult to ensure impartiality and fairness. Investigations can often become biased or insufficient, and individuals or organizations might evade responsibility. And really, this is just due to the lack of rigorous scrutiny. Lastly, political interference and bias can distort accountability efforts. When political considerations influence the investigation or oversight process, accountability can be undermined. For example, powerful political figures or interest groups may attempt to influence the outcome of investigations. They can limit access to information or even prevent certain actions from being taken. This interference can create an environment where the interest of those in power can take precedence over the public good, and this further erodes trust in the system. Together, these barriers, being whether it's institutional resistance to oversight, qualified immunity, inconsistent data collection, or lack of an independent investigatory power, political interference, protects systems or individuals in power. As a result, accountability can be compromised and meaningful reforms may be delayed or even obstructed, leaving vulnerable populations without the protection and justice that they deserve. All hope is not lost. We do have some emerging tools for accountability, including independent civilian review commissions, whistleblower protections, and complaint portals. And technology is changing how we approach accountability. Body and dashboard cameras, for instance, algorithm audits. These things allow greater oversight. Now, they do raise some new ethical issues around surveillance and bias. Let's take a look at some of those. In recent years, algorithms have become an increasingly common tool in the criminal justice system. They're used to predict risk levels, assist in sentencing decisions, and even determine parole eligibility. These predictive algorithms analyze vast amounts of data to make decisions that are intended to be objective and data-driven. However, the use of these algorithms raises significant concerns about bias and fairness. While they're often presented as impartial, the reality is that algorithms can inadvertently reinforce racial and economic biases. For example, if an algorithm is trained on historical data that reflects systemic racial discrimination or socioeconomic inequality, it may replicate and perpetuate those same biases, leading to unfair outcomes for marginalized communities. Now, this can result in individuals from certain racial or economic backgrounds being disproportionately flagged as high risk or even receiving harsher sentences, even though they don't necessarily pose a greater risk or threat than others. Now, accountability in this context means critically examining both the design and the implementation of these algorithms. It's not enough to simply accept these tools as objective or neutral. We must ask who's creating these tools, what data they're using, how they're being deployed. These design really matters. It matters greatly. If the data used to train an algorithm is biased, then the predictions it generates will likely reflect those biases. Furthermore, the designers and developers of these algorithms must be held accountable for ensuring that these tools do not unfairly impact vulnerable groups. This involves making the development process transparent so that the public and regulatory bodies can scrutinize the methods and assumptions behind the algorithms. Additionally, how these tools are used in practice is equally important. If algorithms are deployed without oversight or without clear guidelines for how they should be interpreted, they can become powerful yet unchecked instruments of injustice. For example, a judge or a parole board may over-rely on algorithmic predictions when making sentencing decisions, giving undue weight to potentially flawed or biased recommendations. Accountability requires not only ensuring the tools themselves are fair and transparent, but also establishing strict guidelines for how they are used and evaluated in real-world settings. Ultimately, the use of algorithms in decision-making processes demands a balance between innovation and fairness. While they hold the potential to improve efficiency and consistency in some areas, we must remain vigilant about the risk of reinforcing existing inequalities. Accountability in the context of algorithms means asking tough questions about their design, their use, and their impact, and ensuring that they serve the public equitably without perpetrating harm to historically marginalized communities. To truly align justice systems with fairness, several key reforms are necessary to ensure that the system works for all individuals, particularly those who are most vulnerable or marginalized. These reforms focus on enhancing legal representation, reducing punitive measures, and increasing the involvement of communities in oversight and reform efforts. One essential reform is to expand legal representation and defense resources. In many parts of the world, particularly in lower income communities, individuals who cannot afford private attorneys often receive inadequate legal representation, which undermines their ability to receive a fair trial. By increasing funding for public defenders and providing greater resources for legal assistance, we can ensure that all individuals, regardless of their financial situation, have access to competent legal counsel. This just helps level the playing field, ensuring that people aren't disadvantaged by the quality of their defense, which is crucial for a just system. Another important shift involves promoting restorative justice and community-based alternatives to traditional punitive practices. Restorative justice focuses on healing and reconciliation rather than punishment. It involves bringing together the offender, the victim, and the communities to address the harm caused by a crime and to work together to find ways to make amends. This approach helps reduce the reliance on incarceration, which can often be counterproductive, and emphasizes the rehabilitation, community reintegration, and personal accountability. By promoting restorative justice and investing in community-based alternatives, we can create a more equitable and compassionate justice system. Enacting sentencing and bail reform is also a critical step towards fairness. The current system often imposes excessively harsh sentences and cash bail requirements that disproportionately affect low-income individuals and people of color. Many people remain incarcerated before trial simply because they cannot afford bail, even if they are not considered a flight risk or a danger to society. By rethinking and reforming sentencing guidelines as well as implementing fairer bail practices that do not rely on an individual's ability to pay, we can help ensure that the justice system does not disproportionately punish those who are economically disadvantaged. Finally, engaging communities in oversight processes is essential for making the justice system more responsive to the needs and concerns of the people it serves. When communities have a direct role in monitoring and reinforcing the justice system, they can identify problems more effectively and advocate for solutions that are fair and equitable. This can be achieved by involving community members in review boards and advisory committees and other oversight bodies. Engaging communities ensures that the justice system remains accountable to the people, that promotes public trust, and leads to reforms that reflect the values and needs of society. Together, these reforms can create a justice system that is not only more effective, but is just more aligned with the principles of fairness. These changes help move away from punitive measures towards a system that is restorative, rehabilitative, and truly responsive to the needs of all individuals, particularly those most impacted by inequality. Okay, thanks so much. Please reach out to your instructor if you have any questions.